Today, we are plugging in and dropping way, way down into one of the most sonically influential films ever made, Christopher Nolan's Inception. And we're not just talking about the music. We're going to deconstruct the entire soundscape. A world built not with bricks, but with pure sound.
It's a wild question, right? If you had to build an entire world inside someone's mind, what would the blueprint for its sound even be? Well, Nolan and his team had an answer, and, honestly, it was a revolutionary approach that literally defined the fabric of their dream worlds.
And this is the most important thing you have to get about this movie. The sound in Inception isn't just sprinkled on top for effect. It is the foundation. They actually call it aural architecture. Every single sound, from that distant horn to the pulsing score, is designed to define the rules, the boundaries, and the stability of the dream you're in.
And nothing, I mean nothing, defines that world more viscerally than the film's most famous and, yeah, most controversial sound. You know what I'm talking about. Let's get into the BRAAAM. That's how people have described it, and hey, they're not wrong. But it is so much more than just a loud noise. It's a functional piece of the machinery. It's the sonic signal that a dream level is about to collapse. You know, the auditory version of the ground shaking under your feet. It's a warning you literally feel in your chest. But here's where it gets really interesting. The story behind this sound is actually kind of complicated. It wasn't just one person's idea. You had the composer, Hans Zimmer, who created his version by getting a bunch of brass players to blast their instruments directly into the strings of a piano inside a church, just to capture that huge echoing sound. But at the same time, a trailer composer named Mike Zarin said he actually made a similar sound first for the teaser trailer by messing with recordings of New York City's subways. Totally different methods, but they both landed on the same apocalyptic, reality-bending sound.
And that quote right there just perfectly captures its real purpose. It was never just about being loud and scary. Zimmer wanted a signal for the audience that was almost brutally simple. When you hear that BRAAAM, your brain is being told, hey, pay attention, reality is bending, time is shifting. It's literally a giant signpost in a world that doesn't have any.
Okay, so the BRAAAM is just the most obvious layer. The biggest secret of Inception's score is buried much, much deeper. In fact, it's hidden in plain sight right inside the plot itself. Yes, that's right. The song they use in the film as the kick, the signal to wake the dreamers up, it isn't just a clever plot device. It is the actual DNA of the entire score. Hans Zimmer took a tiny little piece of that classic song and basically used it as the source code for almost every piece of music in the whole movie.
And this is where it just becomes a work of pure mathematical genius. So the movie tells us that time gets 20 times slower with each dream level you go down. Well, Zimmer took that exact same rule and applied it to the music. As the characters go deeper into the dream, the tempo of the music that comes from that Piaf song gets slowed down exponentially. It creates this incredible, heavy feeling of time itself getting stretched out. And right here, this is the big aha moment. On the left, you've got the bright, peppy horns from the original Edith Piaf song. Now think about the main theme from Inception, that huge, slow, ominous blast of sound. It's the exact same melody, just stretched and slowed down to an absolute crawl. The kick and the score are literally the same thing, just separated by the perception of time. It's mind-blowing.
Now, to really wrap your head around the scale of this, think about that snow fortress scene. What feels like a crazy, action-packed hour for us watching the movie is, for the characters, almost a full year of their lives. So the music has to feel like that. It has to carry the immense weight of all that time, which is exactly why the score feels so heavy and epic.
And then there's limbo. You go down one more level, and a few hours in the real world becomes hundreds of years of subjective time. And the music reflects this. It basically dissolves from being a score into these atmospheric, rumbling noise prints. It's the sound of time itself stretching into almost nothing.
Okay, so they've got time dilation covered. But Nolan wanted more. He wanted to create a feeling of constant rising tension that never ever resolves. And for that, he and Zimmer pulled out a very famous auditory illusion.
It's called the Shepard Tone, and it's basically a magic trick for your ears. It's a sound that feels like it's constantly rising and rising in pitch, forever, which creates this feeling of just unbearable, unending tension. I mean, what better sound for a race against a collapsing subconscious? Honestly, the best way to understand this is to think about the Penrose stairs in the movie Crew. You know, that staircase that seems to go up and up forever, but somehow loops back on itself? The Shepard Tone does the exact same thing, but to your ears. It is an impossible, endless loop that perfectly mirrors the film's own mind-bending visuals. So how does this trick your brain?
Well, it's a brilliant little bit of deception. First, you play several notes that are exactly 1 octave apart from each other. Then, and this is the key, you mess with the volume. The highest notes quietly fade out while the lowest notes are quietly fading in. Because your ear naturally focuses on the loudest part in the middle, and the whole thing was looping invisibly, you get the illusion of a sound that is rising forever.
So you put it all together, the BRAAAM, the Piaf blueprint, the Shepard Tone, and you realize it's all part of this much bigger philosophy. Let's take a look at how this idea of aural architecture really created a lasting legacy.
The lead sound designer, Richard King, talked about sonic materiality. He didn't just grab sounds from a library, he would cast them based on their emotional feel. He created these amazing sound bridges between the dream levels, like having the roar of a jet engine slowly transform into the sound of city traffic to ease the transition. He went out and recorded raw, real-world sounds so that everything you heard felt physical, tangible, and real.
And these techniques, this whole idea, it didn't just stop with Inception. It basically created a whole new language for epic filmmaking. You can totally see its DNA in later movies like Interstellar, where that ticking clock on the water planet means that entire days are passing back on Earth with every single tick. This concept of sound carrying the weight of time, it became a signature for both Nolan and Zimmer.
You know, in the end, Inception really taught us that sound isn't just something we hear. It's a space we can actually live in. It can build worlds, it can bend time, and it can totally manipulate our sense of what's real. Which kind of leaves you with one final thought. The next time you're watching a movie and you feel that rumble deep in your bones, you'd have to wonder, are you just listening or are you being architected?